Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for tuning in today, all the way from States. And I'm so glad to have you here. I have been meaning to discuss with thought leaders on Scrum framework, and I'm so honored to have you on board today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Really appreciative of the way we've interacted, right? The power of social media. So thank
Yes.
you for taking the leap forward. And I'm grateful to share whatever knowledge I have on the topic is to help other people, aspire them or inspire them to be where they would like to be in the next future. So
Yeah, sounds great. And Anna, if you can, for everyone who's listening to this, if you can just give a quick introduction about yourself, what have you been up to? What are you doing? What are your plans? Something of that sort.
absolutely. So I am Anna Begum, your favorite Scrum Master, as I say it. So I've been in this space for about 3 going on 4 years now. I studied political science and criminal justice in college while trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And then came across, Scrum and Agile, and it just aligned a lot with what I've been doing while I was in college. I was a rugby player, and so it was not new to me. It was very familiar, and the processes made it all make sense because we do similar things in the game itself. Now you're doing it in practice, so it just was really aligned with what I wanted to do. So I have been in, I say, in the finance space, in the healthcare space, also in drink and yeah, drinking space, right? Drinking food space. So I've tried to be around in utility as well. So I've been around, I've been in different organizations, learned different ways of working, which I'm really appreciative of. And when I'm not doing work, I'm also coaching people to become Scrum Masters and or Scrum Masters that are Scrum Masters and just need guidance. So I'm also there as well to support and guide them through that process.
That's amazing, Anna. I mean, you have such a wide range of experience and so many different industries. And I have to ask you, because you have been in this space for so long, what, according to you, are the top three traits in a Scrum Master that you look for?
I would say servant leadership. I know sometimes we use the word a lot, but we don't know what it means. But you have to kind of put yourself, go above and beyond for your team, going beyond your role, right? So just because you're a scrum master does not mean that all you come and do is the guided principles and methods that you're supposed to do with the teams, right? But it's like sometimes the team is going to require or need more extra from you, and that comes with even you helping them with facilitating conflict resolution, or like maybe bringing coffee or playing activities, team bonding. All those things takes time, and it requires somebody who cares and wants the team to succeed to be able to accomplish that. That would be one. The other one would be, understanding that change will happen, continuous improvement, right? If you're the type of person who don't like change in your personal life, that's something you should try to adapt, because you should be in a position where you can support your team to continue to want to see change and do differently, improve the way that they're working, right? That's two. And then the third one I would say is just be somebody who wants to always learn, right? Life learner, because you're never going to know everything. But once you start to spark interest, right, it's going to help you learn more about the product domain, right? You're going to
Mm.
learn more. When you get into an organization, you probably know nothing about the domain. So you'll
Mm.
figure it out when you get there, but you have the desire to want to learn so you can better facilitate conversations that are going to be impactful to the business value.
Yeah. You talked about servant leadership. Do you think it is something which Scrum Masters and the organizations truly understand? Because, or is there a particular way to train yourself in the servant leadership space?
Yeah, I think that there are ways you can go about it. It all comes with your approach, right? There are people who are very straightforward with hey, I'm here to do my job, and these are the ceremonies that I will come and do. And if anything else, right, like maybe they don't have interpersonal skills to build relationship, right, with people. They're very introvert. So, but you want to challenge yourself. And part of you doing that is becoming a servant. But this is not about you anymore. It's about the team, what the team needs. And if the team needs somebody who's sociable more than they are,
Mm.
then you will rise to that. You will rise to that a challenge, right? And want to be that for the team so that the team can prosper, right? Because the big part about the work we do is building relationship, and the
Right.
relationship that you build, um, it's more important than even the work.
Yeah.
That's how I see it, right? Because you don't want to just bring somebody because you need them for that time. You're bringing them to check on them and see how their families are doing, how life is going for them, right? And how can you be there for them and coach them, right? Because the thing is, you want to be able to help build psychological safety for the team. And part of doing that is you being a servant
Yeah.
leader for the team. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that. I have been telling people that Scrum Master, when you're talking about Scrum and Scrum Master, I think it's all about building relationships, right? It's a, in my opinion, it's such a people-oriented role, and
Yes.
sometimes people miss that and think of Scrum Master as a very technical role, and
Yes.
that's one of the reasons which I feel that a lot of time organization do not realize the full benefit of Scrum. But I
Mm-hmm.
would like to ask you, like, if you have to pinpoint, because I'm sure you would have seen organizations which, on paper, are adapting to are doing Scrum, but
Mm-hmm.
they do not realize the full benefit. So, what,
Yeah.
according to you, are the top two reasons, if I may ask, which is stopping them from realizing the full potential of Scrum?
Sure. I would say the first one is mindset shift, right? Or I think we talked about a little bit before. Mindset shift is very big, right? We change. People don't like change, and that's where you see the most resistance, right? Even with your day-to-day job and stuff like that. So, but the big things that I tell myself or other Scrum Masters is like it all starts with conversation and calling out the problem, right? And also trying to help people see how the work we do aligns with the way you live your life, right? If you're somebody who does not like change in your personal life, well, hey, it doesn't take long for us to realize that when work change, you don't
Mm,
like it, right? And it doesn't, and people are driven by emotions. If they don't like something, then they're not going to be 110% doing it, right? So I would say mindset shift. And that all can be with just understanding where people are in their life and their space, what type of
mm,
change they're willing to have or they're open to. But asking people permission to understand who they are and how they like to work. That's the first thing to even, get into there. And I would say the other thing is also people's attitude about change, right? So
yeah.
you can have a mindset, but you have a negative attitude, or it's not going to work, right? Or it's going to work. Whatever you say it will become, right? Like if you say it's not going to work, it's not going to work. If you say it's going to work, well, you'll find ways to make it work, right?
Yeah.
So you become more adaptive. So which goes back to your mindset.
Yeah.
So I found that like the companies that even want to do on the paper is also the leadership not being forthcoming with what change they're willing to accept.
Mm,
Because sometimes with change you don't have to take everything at once. You can take stuff in increment, right? Incremental change.
yeah.
That is a thing, right?
Mm,
Start with what we can do, make sense, and then we adapt in the future and see, okay, what else can we add to make the process better? But if you're doing the same thing over and over again and expect a change, then you probably should be rethinking how much value you're giving out to your customers, or how much revenue you're losing out on, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
nicely put. And you talked about emotional well-being and emotional intelligence. Even I feel the same, that a Scrum Master, or for that matter, anyone in the organization who's thinking about agile ways of working and change, um,
Mm-hmm.
they should focus on honing their emotional intelligence because it's a trainable skill. I mean, nowadays we have subjects on emotional intelligence, and people should take that up. And
Mm-hmm.
very rightly put, I completely agree with that. And that being said, I would like to ask you, because you have such a wide range of experience, would you like to talk about a small case study, if I may put it that way, wherein you realize that, okay, the traditional ways of working, or the traditional waterfall method was not working, and then Scrum was implemented in its entirety, and that gave positive results. So, any case study that you would like to share?
Sure. So I would say that the ways of working like waterfall and agile, right? Those are just ways of working. And I think that sometimes people get caught up with, are we waterfall? Or are we agile? Right? And sometimes, right, it's not even that is the way what we're doing, it's how we're doing it. Because you can still work in waterfall and still be really productive, right? Depending on what you're doing. So I've been in an organization where they were really fast with trying to pick up, agile into the organization, but there's different flavors of agile. If Scrum don't work, maybe Kanban can. If I'm working in an operational team, I will most likely want to use Kanban or even Scrumban, right? So there's different techniques that we can use, but I think the 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 push was for Scrum, and a lot of team members was like, we don't see the value of Scrum. Right now, you can try and explain all these things all you want, or even show them statistics of companies that have used it. But it also depends on the model. If you're working on operations where you always know you always know kind of like your objective, right? It doesn't really change, but priorities change here and there, right? I would most likely go with Kanban. So what I was able to do is support them because at that time I was an agile coach slash the scrum master and said, okay, let's look at this is the way we're working scrum right here. Yeah, the challenges we have, right? This is Kanban way of working, right? This is process flow. There's not much meetings, but we can add, right? Scrumban. We can have some of the check-in, like daily stand-up, have retrospective. We still have all the Scrum ceremonies, but the way we work, the workflow would be just different, right? And so I showed them the pros and cons of using that, and also say, hey, here are also the metrics that we can collect from this, right? So if we want to combine them, we can, but we need to be in agreement of how we want to go about it, right? So after sharing those two and allowing the team to decide, like, hey, we kind of want to combine it, and let's start little, and then they didn't want 2 weeks retrospective. They wanted 3 weeks retrospective to be done every 3 weeks because they have more substantial things to talk about. Well, it might be reasonable, right? And now we meet our refinement and planning are combined. So we meet weekly for those, right? Because priorities change and now we need to be aligned on what those are and stuff like that. So it was a better conversation. It definitely was a better and like production, right? Because how can you, if we're working on operations, how can you tell logistics like, oh, we picked the whatever machine and we deliver it here, right? Like it's like sometimes that's just time. You can't really say, oh, it took me 3 story points to get that work done, right? Because it's just hard to calculate that. So with all of that, that was what we end up doing. The team in return, right, was happier with the different way of working, and it seemed like it was more aligned to the way that they're working. So to anybody who is just using Scrum, don't just focus on Scrum. Look at the other, flavors of Agile that are available out there, and see how you guys can try things. You can experiment. That's the whole point. We're doing what we're doing to
Yeah,
continuously experiment and learn what works. And not everything is gonna work, but at least you've tried it.
yeah. I so agree with that. Like, I mean, we need to look for tailor-made solution and do not get stuck on our like predefined notions, and do not try to be very bookish, if I may use that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we should look out for tailor-made solution. But then that also, like, we also have to be careful that in doing so, uh, we are not overlooking some of the techniques and being
Yes.
complacent about it, because that's what
Yes.
happens in many cases, right? I've seen that
Yes.
happen quite often,
Yes.
where people said, okay, we'll start off with waterfall, but then we'll adapt scrum. Now that's a good approach, but you have to be very careful about finding the right
Mhm.
balance and not being complacent about it.
Absolutely, because honestly, the processes are there for a reason, right? If you say I would take retrospective out of the five events, then you're doing yourself a disservice. If you say I take, review out of the five events, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's just like you just got to know what risk, right, that you're taking while you're doing it, and what value you want to get out of it, right? I think the big part is what value we're trying to gain here. So if it means that you take one of the ceremonies and blend it, like refinement and planning can go hand in hand, right?
Mm,
Because refinement, you're looking ahead for work, and then
mm,
planning is like you're planning. So if you want to combine those and then have more interactive conversation, hey, if it works,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. But then we have to be careful about that. Now,
Yep.
one question that I have in my mind, and I have been facing this issue as well in the recent past, is how do you improve the communication channel between the product owners and the developers? Because sometimes I feel that product owner is not, and we know, right, most product owners are not from technical background. So there is that
Absolutely.
some
Disconnect or
disagree,
gap.
exactly, some gap between the two. So how do you improve that?
So it all starts with conversation and align and just having that, right? So some of the things that I do when I come on a team is we do our working agreement as usual, but then we'll also highlight what our strengths and weaknesses. So that allows people to be vulnerable, like, hey, this is the skill that I was hired to do. These are the gaps that I have, right? Or this is the skills that so I was hired to do, but I want to learn more of this,
Hmm.
right? So it kind of put it out there. So if I don't know SQL, well, somebody was going to be learning SQL as part of like the team agreement. Like, hey, we want to better. It's like when you go on the team, it's not about the role you were hired, it's about the skill set we need, right? So you will be encouraged to become T-shaped team member, right? So to your question, I say all starts with conversation, being transparent. The other thing that I do is I have one-on-one with my all my team members, right, including product owners.
Okay.
So whatever conversation I hear from developers as far as like, hey, this is a concern of us, like I try to take feedback. So it's a continuous feedback loop. Hey, when I'm speaking to a product owner, it's like, the team will like more of this, the team will like
Hmm.
more of that. And the same thing from the product owner perspective. When I speak to the product owner, it's like, I was speaking to the product owner and she has suggested some of this. What are you guys' thoughts, right? Um, or just say, hey, well, sometimes you don't want to be like, oh, I spoke to the product owner, and then it's like, why didn't product owner come and talk to me or talk to us, right? It's
Hmm.
like, I had this conversation, I thought it was really helpful, I want to bring it to the team. What do you guys thought, right? So it's to try and have continuous feedback loop. And even when we have retrospective, it's like being transparent. I call things out as I see it.
Hmm.
So if I notice that, hey, we have a gap here, I was like, hey, I just put this on the board. I don't know if you guys notice it, but this is something that I observe. If you guys think it's something that you observe as well and you want to talk about it, maybe we can figure out how to make it better, right? But that conversation has also led to the team wanting to have more, um, to have like the business tech conversation where we have a tech lead on the team and we have the business analyst and the product owner, where the tech lead now is helping bridge that gap, right?
Hmm.
And sharing information about like what systems we have out there, what technologies that the teams are using, if any technical words that come out. It's something when I do too in stand up or any meetings that we have. If somebody says something I don't know, I just jot it down and I ask. And most of the time, I'm not the only one who don't know that, right? Like
Yeah.
a couple of days ago, my team was talking about binding. We're working with data, but I don't know what binding is, right?
Mm.
In this context. So when we're done, I say, hey, I know you've been using this word a lot. Like, what does this mean? And it all starts with the question, but you have to kind of put yourself vulnerable to not knowing, to allow your other team members to also say, okay, I can ask questions, right?
Yeah.
I can say things that, I don't know and be okay with it and nobody will judge me. So you have to create a community,
Yeah.
and also create that sense of belonging for them.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's so important to open up and be honest about what you feel about the project and bring the discussions to the forum. And you said that as a Scrum Master, you are having this one-on-one discussions with all the team members, and that is something even I should explore actually. And it's a really good idea. I've never thought about it, and
Mm-hmm.
just would like to ask you, and because in a way, Scrum Master is mentoring the members,
Mm-hmm.
so this is another question I have because, and I asked this because earlier when I was into project management, I also was a part of operations team, and I had a whole big team rolling up to me, and it was mandatory for me to actually connect with them during
Mm-hmm.
the appraisal period and all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
in a Scrum framework, I would like to ask you that if a Scrum Master should be involved in the yearly appraisal for the team members, the developers, or product owners. What do you think
So
of
that's
that?
yeah, so that's linking to your performance review, right?
Yeah.
So I have one-on-one with my people that are my team's managers as well, right? So it's not just when good things are happening that it's also what areas of improvement we're working on, or I want to be able to understand. So I ask the right question, right? Because um, I realized that sometimes there's a gap between that, right? Like I am the person who is there with the team, so I know a little bit more than the manager that is not in the room.
Yeah.
So if there's something that I'm noticing or an area that this person said they want to work on, maybe I can be the best person to say, hey, this is what we've been working on as a team. This is how this person is doing. But I don't use this time to say the issues that the team member might be having because that's a team's problem, not the manager's problem, right? I want to say yes and no because, you don't want to become that person where the Scrum Master is the go-to, oh, don't speak bad. It might end up in your review, right?
Yeah.
Like people can easily just take that, and that's not what we're there for, to go and tell like, hey, you're having a good review or you're having a bad review because you don't get along with me, I don't get along with you, or you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I just want to, shed light and be careful with that, um, as we communicate, because I'm even transparent with the managers. I said, our meetings is not for me to come and talk about what is happening, like who's doing what or not doing what. It's for us to be aligned on how we can help this particular member be there, will reach their full potential. So
Yeah.
anything that we're talking is more of actionable. What can we do to help? Right? It's not, oh, they're not doing this, so therefore they need this next steps,
Yeah.
right? So I wouldn't say, because this is too becoming too streamlined. We're so trusted. We're supposed to be trusted by our teams that having such insight or such influence in this can also um, have a negative connotation to how they interact with us, by
Yeah.
not being fully transparent or
Yeah.
showing up their stuff because they don't know where it's going to end up. So I'm just cautioned with that.
Yeah. To build that healthy relationship with your members, you want to be cautious of that. And like you rightly talked about, it's all about servant leadership, where you are helping the
Exactly.
team member to realize their full potential.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. So yeah, completely agree on that part. And next, I wanted to ask you, um, what is your opinion on the career trajectory for a Scrum Master? Like, okay, someone has been a Scrum Master for XYZ years, and now what's next? Where should the Scrum Master be heading?
I would say agile coach would be the next step. Consultant can even be a next step, right? I think while I was in the role, I realized, maybe I should get my program consultant. Um, because I want to be part of helping organizations, implement Scrum Agile the right way, not just going in for it because that's what the word on the street is. And also to challenge myself, right? Because you meet and work with different types of people. And most of the time, what we work with is the people's personality, not so much of the work. So to see like my level of, patience and also my level of tolerance, right, with the people we're working with. So I would say either become a consultant or an agile coach, or you mentor other people, like, that you can always do, right?
Yeah. And with that trajectory, do you think the Scrum Master can one day become the CEO of the company, like reaching the like climbing up the corporate ladder?
You can be whatever you want,
Yeah.
right? Like I think it's just like, what is your goal? What are you trying to get out of it, right?
Yeah.
What problem are you trying to solve? Are you
Yeah.
trying to solve a bigger problem than it is? Like I feel like you can do literally whatever you want in this position in this role, because in the role itself you would have made enough relation, or you make relationship or build relationship that will inspire or influence somebody, right? Like
Yes.
there's a role that I had that I was talking to VPs, but I was doing live coaching. So I had like live coaching sessions and just throw it on the calendar and people come there and I just talk. But that's me naturally building relationship with people that can be like, hey, and I know you don't have this skill, or I know you're not in this role, but we can teach you the skill you need to be
Yeah.
successful, right? So you just never know, and you can be whatever you want.
Yes, yes. So that's so good to hear. And I asked this question specifically because as you climb up the ladder, I think it's your people skills that tend to matter more because it's not your individual result that's going to
Mm-hmm.
decide your success or failure. It's going to be the complete work of the entire team that you are leading. And I think when you are a Scrum Master, you are in a way doing that, right? You're trying to enhance the level of the team. So that's why I asked it, because I was reading an article on this the other day, Scrum Master. I'll
Mm-hmm.
see you. I'll share the link with you. An interesting lead, an
Please,
interesting read. Yeah, yeah,
I'd love to see it. I love to
yeah.
see it.
Yes. And so I'll ask the last question for the day. And that is, what is your one tip or advice for the leadership of the organizations who are thinking about going into agile ways of working or who are not realizing the full potential? Like just one single tip for the leadership.
I would say know your why. Yeah, right. Like know your why. It's definitely going to drive what you're willing to do, right? Because your why also comes with your motivation and your willingness to try and do things. So
Yeah.
I think just really be explicit with why you want to do what you want to do. And then everything else will fall into place and be intentional about it. Um, right? Not just say, we want to do this and we expect all of these things to happen. It's like be patient while you're doing the process. That's what your why is going to help you do. Become more patient.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. And yes, it's very important. I think not just for an organization, but otherwise in life as well. I think it's very important to know your
Yeah.
whys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's when I say Scrum or Agile in my regular life, it's a lifestyle. Agile is a lifestyle, and
Yeah.
we just gotta embrace it with, not just separate this thing. Yeah, it can be separated if you're talking about work, but the things that are transferable to your life, to life in
Yeah.
general,
Yeah.
right? Like we want to become better people or a better person than the year you were or the day or month, right? So yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you brought it up because I would just like to share this because I know you can totally appreciate this, but other people in my life think that I'm too geeky to do this. And I have been using Trello board for my personal life, and I can't start my day without looking at my Trello board, and I can't end my day without actually, seeing what am I going to
Mhm.
do for the next day and which column where I'll put everything. So I operate on that level in my personal life as well, and I'm sure that you will understand that.
Oh no, I do. I actually wrote my ebook on Trello. Because I had so many ideas of what I wanted to do. One day I just like, if I'm gonna be helping people to do this, why don't I just do it for myself? So I literally go on Trello, create the columns, say, okay, how many chapters do I want to have? What do I want to go into there? What
Yeah,
pictures? Like it made it so easy. Each day I
yeah,
focus on
yeah.
one column, right? Like
Yes,
that's all
yes.
I could do for that day. And it was easier to digest. And I encourage everybody to try it, right? Like it seems like it's a lot, but it's discipline. It really
Yeah,
is. That's what you need.
nice. Yeah, and Trello is so amazing. I mean, I in my work I use Jira, and for my personal life I use Trello. So I'm using Atlassian all over the place. So yeah, and you talked about your ebook. So like, if anyone who's listening to this, if they want to access it or buy it, how can they do that?
Oh, okay. So I have an ebook that's out there. It's called Becoming a Scrum Master with Zero Experience.
Um,
Um, you can get it on PayHip if you type it in there. I think also if you go on Google and type in Becoming a Scrum Master with Zero Experience, it should come up. I also have a website that's it's also available there. It's www.scrummaster-champions.com, and they also let you know some of the services that I offer as far as like
yeah,
mentorship. Also,
sure.
the ebook is listed there, so definitely don't miss out on your favorite Scrum Masters ebook.
Sure, sure. I'll take all these links, and wherever I'll publish this on YouTube and LinkedIn, I'll ensure that I'm giving out all the links. And yeah, it was really, really amazing talking to you. And thank you so much for sparing time on a Sunday afternoon. And uh, I'm so glad that we are having this conversation. And I genuinely hope that people who are viewing this or listening to this derive some value from this.
Absolutely. That's the goal, right? I mean, we want to help the next person. So I never stop talking about Scrum, even when I'm sleeping or dreaming. Like I
Yeah,
always I'm always on the move to say to the point where I had to create boundaries for myself, and now having calendars, like if you want to talk about specific Scrum, put it on my calendar, let's talk, right? Like I cannot
yeah,
just be having this conversation all the time, but I appreciate you honestly reaching out and just the initiative to, want to empower and help other people as they go through the journey. This is amazing. So please let's do this again another time. Or maybe
yeah,
next time we can do a little conference, right? Get other Scrum
yeah.
Masters or Agile coaches and just have a panel list conversation.
Yes, yes, that's the goal. I'm trying. I don't know how this will pan out. Like I said earlier, I just wanted to build a repository of content of thought leaders in this space so that people can benefit. And I'm sure that as we proceed, I'm going to fine tune this further. But that being said, thank you so much. And I will now stop the recording.
Sure.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I will be hosting more industry leaders from the world of Agile. I'll also be discussing practice questions and tips and tricks for PMP and Scrum. And I'll also be conducting mock interviews on this channel. So if all of that interests you, then please hit the subscribe button. And until we meet again, this is Shivam signing out. Thank you.